Okay, welcome back. This is what I talked about earlier in the show, pre-recorded segment that I did before the game on Wednesday. Now, granted, Miz doesn't pitch until tomorrow, Friday. So as we kind of break this down, I want to prerequisite this breakdown saying I've talked to Miz, I've talked to Chris Hook about these changes, and I am not a pitching coach, but I'm just trying to explain what they explained to me of how he goes from 99 to 100 a year ago to now 103 with adrenaline in the ninth inning of a complete game shutout, right? But these are some of the very, very small mechanical things that we talk about with Jacob Misiorowski and with Chris Hook and the entire pitching team that help him unlock another level. And for young pitchers out there, for young coaches out there, maybe you watch this and you realize, A, he's a freak, right? As in Miz has a God-given ability to throw a baseball. But also, B, is the fact that you will notice changes in his body. The two starts I chose were the two against the Phillies. Last Labor Day on September 1st, and then, of course, the 15 punch-out, epic, near-perfect game last Friday against the Phillies. So same opponent, first inning, same batter, fastball, okay? That's the whole point of this, just to show you the difference of mechanics that, as subtle as they are, can really translate to something completely different and a different view for the hitter. So we got three views to show you. Your traditional center field, down the line, high center field camera that you would see for every pitch in a game. We've got the low third base side, the profile view, the head-on view of Jacob Misiorowski. And then finally from behind home, the mid-home view, that robo camera that sits on the netting. So same ballpark, same cameras. Angles don't get wonky with this. That's why I chose these two games. So let's try to put on our thinking caps here and show you some of the things that I noticed when I compare the mechanics year over year of Jacob Misiorowski. Let's start with down the line here from center field. I'm just going to play it out once through here for you. Obviously, the old version is on the right. The new version of Miz is here on the left. You can tell by the City Connect jersey. So we're looping it through a few times. They look extremely similar, of course, but I want to break down a few things that I noticed here. First and foremost, as we go back to the start, let me pause it and go frame by frame. Going back to the very beginning of this, too, notice how his stance is just a little bit more closed off to the batter here when we look at his hips versus a year ago. You can see a little bit more of the belt buckle, right? You can see just sort of a little bit of a preset here. This will really come out in the low third view of Jacob Misiorowski. Now, as we play this out, and I'll go ahead and play it in a quarter speed now because those were already in half speed. As we bring it to the top, things look really similar. I would say, if anything, one thing that I noticed from Miz is just how upright he is compared to a little bit more posture rounded. I don't know if that was necessarily envisioned when Miz made these changes, but it'll make more sense here as we move forward in this video. So a little bit more compact, a little bit more condensed top of the leg kick here for Miz. But now as we really slow it down, and I'm going to go frame by frame now as these are synced up of how much lower Miz is getting. Now, it may not seem like a lot as you watch here, frame by frame, but as I draw a line to show you, this year versus last year, I think that's a pretty big difference when you can see the angles like that of how much lower he is getting frame by frame. And then that allows him to explode forward. In looking at the numbers, the vertical release height is not really that different. We're within inches of this from a season ago, and that's not significant enough to talk about when we're talking about release height. Now, if we're talking he's going from 4.8 feet to 5.1 feet, now that's a different story, but that's not what's happening here. But by getting down lower and using that new trunk that he has, I mean, let's all say what we're thinking here as we're watching here on YouTube. The dude got stronger. The dude got a lower half finally. He got built, like we've talked about, how he's gained pant sizes. You can see it here, using it to his advantage to try to get lower in his squat, in his delivery down to the plate. Now, again, going frame by frame, as we open up the hips, as we open up and we get ready to land on that foot. Now, all 5 toes are down on this same frame. Okay, this is the first moment all 5 toes are down on that front foot. What's the first thing you notice? Again, I am looking at that rotation of the upper body. Okay, see how much of the letters that you can see on Miz in the old version versus the new version? This is under control. This is where that strength is coming in. He's not relying on flailing open. He's not relying on really trying to rotate hard. Now, you need to rotate hard, obviously, to throw effective pitches, but you can see where the strength is really coming through here, that having an on-time delivery where you're not leaning, and this will really come through in the mid-home view, where you can see the angle of his body is really sort of got a curve. This is back to that straight version that we're talking about. Now, moving a little bit further into this plant and into this fire, watch the follow-through here, and I'll just put this in regular speed. Watch his tippy toes on the old version. Okay? Now you've seen the tiptoes on that front leg, whereas on the new version, he is staying down. He is staying heel engaged with the mound as he releases the pitch. That's that core balance that Chris Hook has talked about. That's what Miz has said. The water bag has really helped him maintain his delivery, maintain staying over that plant leg and firing through. All 5 toes down and the heel engaged with the mound keeps you engaged moving forward. His strength is really showing here in the down-the-line difference from last year to this year. Next, let's go to the low third base face-on view here for Jacob Misiorowski. Now, I had to cut off the head a little bit, but again, sync these up from the same moment the pitch is thrown and everything like that. So once again, just like we did with the last one, let's just watch a few on our own. Old version is on the bottom. New version is on the top. Now, the angle was slightly different year over year here, so I did my best to keep it level, so that's why it may look like the bottom extension is longer. The extension numbers are virtually the same here for each of these pitches. So now that we've looked at it a few times, let me break down a couple of things that I noticed and maybe some things that we already talked about so far in this video. First of all, we talk about that preset hip. One of the ways that you can easily see it here, look how turned in his front leg is. He's trying to set that hip and kind of load in early to create that squat and create that rotation in the beginning of his rotation. Now, again, as I play it frame by frame, it's a little bit more over the back leg, whereas this is a little bit more straight up, and then he turns. So that's one of the things that you're easily able to notice when you watch this frame by frame. And again, you see that line that we're talking about. We're across the body here. Oh, here, let me change the colors on that. We're across here. We're across the belt buckle here, whereas we're a little bit more upright. Now, that's an exaggerated view, but I think you can see that on your own of just we're a little bit over the back leg now versus this one's just slightly behind it. It's not a bad thing here. But now, as we explode into the pitch, when I go and look here at that back foot, look at the new back foot, how much lower that shin is to the ground versus down here on the old back foot. See how much lower and long the stride is. Now, he's still getting elite extension, but we look at the body one more time at the stability that he has created versus the lean that we see in the old version. He's a much more upright in the new version as he strides, as he has very little space on the bottom of the shin, indicating he is staying low and engaged, using the mound to his advantage. Now, when we go into the final set here, boom, we release the baseball. Look at that. The foot is still engaged with the mound. Down here, the foot is off the mound. The balance, the strength that we talk about to stay engaged using his core versus this one is just using pure arm strength, which, hey, he got by on it, but by the end of this game, last Labor Day, he was sitting 98-99. Now, adrenaline had something to do with this game, but again, he broke his own record for pitches over 100 miles an hour. He set the new record for pitches over 101 miles an hour. I mean, the list goes on of how impressive the body changes have been for Jacob Misiorowski to follow through. And again, this is the same pitch that we saw earlier where, look at the tiptoe. That left leg is stuck in the ground on the new version. In the bottom version, he is tiptoeing. He is kind of pirouetting over that front leg. The strength and the stability that he has created allows him to put more finish on pitches, and thus a couple more ticks of velo. Now, the last view I wanted to point out here is the mid-home, kind of the slash camera, if you will, of that robo camera from right on the net. when we watch this a few times through, and I know it might look a little funky given the guy on the left is not on a mound using the rotoscope tool here in Adobe, but I just want to show one more time that posture that we see a little bit of a difference of, especially on the follow-through and on the way down. Looks very similar right now, but then as we go step by step, frame by frame, the moment he plants, again, we're starting to see the difference come through for Miz. Right at release, okay, we see a strong core here, up and down. We're starting to see a lean over here, and as we play that out, we see that's fine. We're still staying over the baseball. But when we go backwards a little bit, we can really see it on his way down. As he lunges, look at this rotation on the left side. As he lands on the left, he rotates and pulls. And you can see that back in that arch that he has created here, where he's just a little rounded on his way down. Whereas as we look over on the other side, he lands, rotates, but we can see a flat, sort of straight downward and staying in plane and staying with his shoulders level, not trying to create too big of an angle. Now, naturally, you are going to have an angle when you are throwing a baseball. But as he releases the baseball, again, we don't see that tiptoe. We don't see the wild getting off the plane of the release. Yes, he's going to follow through and kick. When you throw 100 miles an hour, all that energy has to go somewhere. But when I'm watching Miz one more time in the control that he has as he lands, as he fires, wouldn't you want to be a hitter when you're watching this right now? What I mean, look at where he starts. Right, he's on the extreme first base side of the rubber, and he's landing essentially down the middle of the mound. That is creating a little bit more deception that you may not anticipate. And you talk to hitters and they try to pick up something, try to understand where should I be looking for his release point, where should I be trying to find the baseball. I remember Rudy Jaramillo, who's a legendary hitting coach, used to always say you got to start on the logo of the cap and then go over to find the baseball. Well, if you're starting on the logo of the cap for Miz, look how much space he's created here from the logo of the cap to the ball. That's time for your eyes to travel. That's time for you to pick up the baseball. And then more time for your eyes to calibrate and realize, all right, what kind of spin am I seeing? Fastball. Oh, no, it's by me. That's what makes Misiorowski such an impressive arm, even without the velocity. I believe this is a deceptive enough delivery that if it's 96, 97 miles an hour with the vert numbers and with the low release height that he possesses, it is still very hard to pick up. And it's just a bonus that he also throws 103 miles an hour. So those are a few of the mechanical things that I saw and learned from Hookie, learned from Miz about some of the things that he's been doing lately and trying to make sure that it becomes repeatable. I've said this a few times to some folks, and I think I've said it on a few postgame shows too, that what a wild sentence to say that when we watch Jacob Misiorowski pitch, it's a repeatable delivery. Isn't that wild? And last year, we'd see him get all over the place. The limbs are going kind of crazy. When he gets out of sync, that tends to happen from time to time. But that we see the fruits of his labor. We see the strength in the lower body and the core, the continued work on the water bag with everybody in the pitching staff to say, hey, you need to be balanced. You need to work these small muscles to maintain the engine of the big muscles. You've heard Chris Hook say that before. The lower body is the engine of any pitcher. We all have assumptions about arms and arm health and that sort of thing. It all has to start from your lower body. And to see Miz put on the pounds that he put on for his lower body in the offseason, to now seeing it pay off, that he's still, on this historic 8-game, 9-game stretch right now, that the velo hasn't ticked down as the innings have gone up. The Brewers are going to be very conscious of how he is used moving forward. They need to make sure they have him in October, of course. I'm not saying he's going to skip starts, but you're going to see more situations like the situation we saw this week where Miz actually, skipped a couple of days, gets an extra day of rest in order to align things. The Brewers have 18 games in 17 days coming up. They'll have a good stretch coming up out of the All-Star break, too. And also, Miz is probably going to pitch in the All-Star game. So that's another date that you have to keep on your calendar to make sure that he's ready to go with. These are some of the things that I look at. Again, reclaiming the disclaimer. I talked to guys about this. I talked to Miz. I talked to Hookie about this. And again, I'm not a pitching coach. But these are just the things that trying to express that the work that he has put in is paying off on top of just being a good kid, man. I like it when good humans do good things. And Miz is certainly in that category. So I hope you enjoyed that breakdown. The numbers are gaudy. I don't have the force plate numbers. I don't have the jump test. I don't have any of that stuff. But I think you and I can both understand, just looking at his lower half in these clips, yeah, he has definitely gotten stronger to be a big league pitcher.